Welcome to the Friendly Podcast Guide, sorting through podcasts so you don't have to. I'm Andy Smiley, and I want to help you discover the right podcast without having to listen to an entire episode. Now, let's talk podcasts. Hi there. I've never had this type of podcast on my show, and I'm so excited to continue to expand our FPG horizons. This week, we're talking about giant monster movies with host Robert Kelly. His podcast is called Record All Monsters, and it dives into the history of giant monster movies. Before we listen to my monstrous chat with Robert, here's some details about the show. The length of each episode is 45 minutes to an hour, and it is an ongoing series with new episodes available every other week. Before we learn more about the vibe of the show, we're going to take a quick break to talk about my free guide to find podcasts you'll love. I hope you're excited about Record All Monsters, but if you're not sure if it's a good fit for you, I have a guide that can help you find a podcast you will love. The guide has 9 different types of podcasts like history, parenting, and health and wellness, and under each type of podcast, there are links to 3 different shows. That is 27 different podcasts for you to choose from. If you try a couple and you don't like any of them, I put my email at the bottom of the guide so you can email me and I will personally help you find a podcast you will love. Now we get to hear from Robert as he describes the vibe of his show in the most unique way I've ever heard. Today we have Robert Kelly from Record All Monsters on the podcast today. And I've never heard of a podcast like this, so I'm excited. I usually have heard of at least one other podcast like it. This one is unique.
Oh, well, thank you. I think that's a compliment.
I say it is. Okay, so I forgot to ask you. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. So my name's Robert Kelly. I am a library employee in South Texas. I drive a bookmobile for my day job. I've loved giant monster movies since I was a little kid, and during the pandemic, I was writing all these things about giant monster movies and just reading them to my wife. And she was like, you should, you've been thinking about doing a podcast. This is what you should do your podcast with. And she even helps me produce the show. So
that's awesome. And also thank you for being a library employee. We love the library at our house, and I'm grateful for your patience because my children are very excited every time we go to the library. So I'm sure that you get that too.
Very good.
Okay. So you talked about it a little bit. But do you want to dive in a little more into why you started your podcast?
Oh yeah. So there was that aspect of it of, just having these thoughts about the movies when I had some unexpected downtime. And I couldn't find very many other podcasts on giant monster movies. So I decided, this is something I want to do, and I want to do it from this history angle because that's a big portion of why I'm interested in it. Ultimately, I started the show because I love giant monster movies. I wanted to learn more about them. I wanted to teach people about them, and the best way to learn something is to teach it.
Definitely. I like the history aspect because it is unique, and I feel like a lot of people are probably really interested in that side of giant monster movies. That's fun.
Well, there's very little. Like, I have had to do some deep digging. I've done some original research, which I was not expecting to do in the course of this show. But yeah, it's been an experience, and I'm glad you like the history. I was worried about the history side of things boring people, but it's been very positive reaction to it.
I'm glad. I feel like history can be boring, I guess, for some people, but I feel like it is fascinating to at least in me. So I feel like you've got at least one person that likes the history of things. What do you want people to get out of your podcast?
What I want from the show for my audience is for them to, if not catch the same enjoyment or love of these movies that I have, at least understand why people like me appreciate them the way that we do.
Okay. That's awesome. How would you describe the vibe of your show?
See, I had a hard time with this one. I was thinking about it. I was looking over the sheet and I was like, what is the vibe? And my initial answer was kind of a very loose academic setting, but I'm not an academic and I don't want people to feel like this is something stuffy. Um, I think maybe the best way to describe it is, let's say that you have a 5-year-old nephew and he loves Godzilla movies, and you pick him up from school and you're going to have to watch him during the day when you get back to his house, and you have agreed to watch a Godzilla movie with him.
Okay.
So he's telling you about the Godzilla movie in a way that is exciting. Like, he's clearly excited, so you're a little excited, and you're not that interested maybe, but he's clearly into it, and just there's joy bursting forth.
Sure. I love that. So you kind of catch the excitement and like you catch the vision a little bit from your 5-year-old nephew, who I'm assuming is you in this
I
scenario.
am the 5-year-old nephew.
Okay.
I'm the world's 5-year-old nephew telling them to love Godzilla.
That is fabulous. I love that. You know what? That is quite the vibe. I feel like that paints a very vivid picture. I think that's fabulous. So I know this might be hard, but do you have a favorite episode and why?
So I had a hard time with this one too, but I did come to an answer recently, about a month ago. We put out an episode on the movie Godzilla's Revenge, which is now usually known as All Monsters Attack. It was an unusually long episode. We usually try and keep things under an hour, even if that's just by like the skin of our teeth, just like skating in at 55 minutes. Most episodes are around 35 to 45 minutes. This one, I had so much to say, it ballooned out into a 90-minute episode. An hour of the essay I wrote, which usually the essay portion is only about 10 minutes. 6 times as long as a normal one. And then a 30-minute discussion with my wife and producer, who she loves that movie as well. So it was basically a love fest for a movie that's generally disliked by the Godzilla fan community. And I thought it was important enough to give it its due, even if I did have to break some of my own rules to put it out.
There you go. It sounds like a passionate episode that needed to happen.
It is.
That's awesome. A lot of my listeners are moms or parents. So I like to ask this question. Is your podcast okay for little ears?
It's family friendly. There's one episode that is marked explicit because there's a few bad words, but most of the time I keep anything that is uncensored onto the Patreon feed. So.
Okay, fabulous. And truly, I feel like as long as you let people know, then they can either put headphones in or they can just wait for a time when their kids aren't around. It's the beauty of podcasts. And where can people find you?
So the show itself, Record All Monsters, you just type that into anything you listen to podcasts on. I think we're on all of them.
Nice.
And we're on YouTube. If you look up the name of the show on Facebook, it comes right up. We are also on Twitter at Monsters Record. We're on Instagram at recordallmonsters.pod. And there is we have an email. We have a Patreon. Just the email is recordallmonsterspod@gmail.com.
Fabulous. I will make sure to link all of that and your favorite episode in the show notes so that people can jump straight to wherever they want to go to consume your content.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. I'm excited. I feel like I like to have podcasts of all kinds on my show, because I want moms and, well, really anyone, but especially moms, to realize that they can listen to whatever kind of podcast they want to. They don't have to just listen to parenting podcasts. They can listen to podcasts about Godzilla and not feel guilty about it. They can just like enjoy all types of podcasts. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you know someone who could use Record All Monsters in their life, will you share this episode with them? And you can grab my free guide to find a podcast you'll love with links to 27 different shows by clicking the link in the show notes. Talk to you soon.